Good evening. It's 6 o'clock. Welcome to a workshop meeting of the Manitou Springs City Council. This is a meeting for October the 24th, 2023. Tonight, we're going to discuss the budget, the whole budget, nothing but the budget. So calling this to order, we'll do a quick roll call here. Councillor Wolf.
Here.
Councillor Johnson.
Here.
Councillor Shada.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Fortune.
Present.
Councillor Chandler.
Present.
Councillor Weatherholt.
Here.
And the mayor is also present. So we're all here. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. This is the 2024 budget discussion, ably put together by really it's been a team effort. All our department heads, our finance directors taking lead, Rebecca Davis, ably assisted by Denise Howell and Roy Cheney. So I guess, Denise, I'll hand it off to you, and I presume you'll hand it off to Rebecca.
You bet. Thank you. We received a couple of questions which we'll be addressing as we go through tonight. The first thing I do want to mention is I asked all the department heads to be here. And I would like if you have a specific question for a department head, if we could do that at the beginning, that would be great. And then we can go ahead and allow them to go, and then Becca can manage other things accordingly. But if they're all here to answer any questions you have in particular about any budget that they're overseeing. So if we could do that, and then we'll open it up to further discussion.
That's fine. Thank you. And before, Becca, if I could just kind of interrupt you there. Fire Chief Forsett has he's playing hooky from another meeting. So if we could take Chief Forsett first among the department heads. But Becca, if you'd like to introduce things.
I was just going to quickly say that at the start of the budget retreat, we had a 2024 ending unassigned fund balance for the general fund of $6,020,942. We've done some switching around with the Jane's bequest, but that has a net zero effect upon that. And there was an agreement to increase the police station remodel cost by $150,000, which brings that fund balance at the end of the retreat to $5,870,942.
Thank you.
Mayor, and I want to mention that's anticipated, right? It depends on how the taxes come in, et cetera, but that's the anticipated amount right now.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we always try to live to our best guess. Okay, great. If council has no objections, I'd like to, if we have questions for the fire department, does anybody have questions for Chief Forsett? Chief, do you have anything you'd like to tell us? Okay. Okay, great. Thank you, Chief. Cheers. Denise, do you have another department head you'd like to recommend next order? Or?
Well, we know Kelly and Hannah and Alex will need to stay for a little bit, but if we just want to go and I think that's it. So if we just want to go around and see if anybody has anything for Chief Otto, that would be a great one to start with.
Okay, any councilors, any questions for the police department for Chief Otto? I guess not. Chief, do you have anything you'd like to tell us? Thank you. Then
I do want to mention Chief Otto and I yesterday went to DOLA. We presented and asked for the $350,000 for the police department. We'll know in the next couple of weeks, but we drove to Avon to make that request, and it appeared to be successful, but we'll know in the next couple of weeks.
great. Thank you.
That's a good question.
Oh, yeah.
If we were to get the 350,000, do you know when that would come in? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, if we get that, we'll know the first couple of weeks in November, and then it takes a couple of weeks to sign the contract. So it will be in the December timeframe, and then we can get ready and start remodeling the police station.
Thank you.
You bet.
Great. Thank you. I guess if there's no further council questions, we can thank the chief for coming, and you're excused if you like. You're welcome to sit here and enjoy all of this, Chief. Really. We've got a copy to share if you like. It's about 250 pages. Thanks, Chief. Let's see.
Should we go with Jillian at
Okay,
the Park and Rec
let's
Department?
do Park and Rec.
the
Okay.
aquatics.
So this would be questions for the Park and Rec Department, the Aquatic Center, things related to that. Jillian, if you want to come forward. Council, do we have questions for Jillian? A day-long work session solves a lot of curiosity. So
I have a random question. Do we have a sauna at the pool? We don't, do we?
Not yet. It'd be great to get a sauna, but we do not have one.
All right, thank you.
any other questions or comments for Jillian? Jillian, do you have anything you need to tell us or would like to tell us?
Yes, if you haven't hiked the western section of the Inniman Trail, I would highly recommend it. We just had the Rocky Mountain Field Institute finish 3 weeks worth of trail work. And if you were hiking it midsummer and you saw that extremely rutted out section, it's completely unrecognizable right now. So I would strongly recommend it. It's beautiful and Renfrey did a great job. So I just wanted to point that out.
Great, thank you. Very good, thank you. Let's see, shall we do parks or parking next? Or Denise, do you have a recommendation?
Yeah, I'm thinking mobility and parking. You may have quite a few questions, but yeah, we'll bring up one at this time.
Well-
We did give you the budget with the changes that Becca mentioned that Counselor Wolf identified. And so we made those and you have those here. They're also, we sent them out earlier this week electronically. So you have that too. But if you have any questions for mobility and parking, we'll
Okay.
turn it over to Juan.
Okay, counselors, okay, Mr. Shada.
Yeah, on page 9 of, I think, the paper that proposed version of mobility and parking that's was handed out tonight. I have a few questions, and I think it's just mainly a matter of kind of education since they're kind of new items. And I was wondering, I don't really have a preference in terms of who in staff goes over these things, but down on the mid-page on page 9, where it says capital outlay.
Hang on just a second, John. I think Juan has a different sled of paperwork. Is this what you're talking about?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Since we
This
just
thing-
got it.
This handout here, somebody could maybe
you know,
grab him. Thank you very much. So that he can. So on page 9, that memo there. Where it says capital outlay, which is about more than halfway down the middle of the page. I was wondering if somebody could kind of go over the expense purchases for $536,000 for the proposed budget there over the right-hand side, what that might be.
Yes, I can do that.
Thank you.
So for capital purchases, the 536,
Yes,
electric Polaris for 36,000. The street sweeper hybrid EV, which is 500,000. Now that, I know we've said that for the capital improvement fund, we will not be doing a lease purchase. My intention is to do a lease purchase for this $500,000 piece of equipment because that's a major, major purchase. So when you add the 500 plus the 36, there you go, 536.
And I want to mention that street sweeper is not an EV, it's a hybrid.
Oh.
and
Whoops.
then the next one down there for 350K.
Let's see, that's the bridge repair. Now on bridge repair, what the plan is to build
I
up.
can't hardly hear
Oh.
you.
Is that better?
Yes,
Sorry about that. The plan is for the bridge repair is to build up some funding for that. We're not going to be repairing a bridge every single year. We're going to put money aside every year and then every other year have enough funding to work on a bridge.
And we talked about that during the meeting, that 350 would come out of mobility and 250 comes out of public works. So we put 500,000 every year, and then every 2 years we can do something with a bridge.
okay, so, and Mr. Mayor, if you indulge me, a few more questions on this.
Yeah, go ahead, pursue it.
So on page 164 of the budget book, which is PPR TA. I'll let people turn to page 164, which is in my book, the second set of tabs, the dark purple, first dark purple one labeled 8. I'm on page 164. So as I understand in the expense objects there on page 164, capital outlay 475. we've been spending that on street overlay and chip and seal and things like that. Is that not correct there, Becca?
One moment, let me double
Thank you.
check. So in 2024, the intention is to use maintenance, of course, on maintenance, but then any real capital expenditure, we're going to be spending on the Hiawatha Gardens.
So wait, so this expense object here on page 164, all 475,000 is all on Hiawatha?
Nope, I believe that's for the maintenance. So that line is this is a problem with ClearGov is the lines, when we have it rolled up like this, it's not showing the account lines. And this one was saying capital outlay, while the ones that were breaking out into our particular capital projects were identified properly. So mobility parking, that's actually that Hiawatha parking lot. So I know it's a little confusing. We did.
Okay, well, I guess what I'm
open
asking
lines.
about
Yep.
specifically capital outlay, that 475, is that for paving or what?
Maintenance.
Okay, and so, but I know maintenance, so does that mean that's like for paving and things like that?
Yes,
Okay, thank you. And then mobility and parking, which is 382 and some dollars. What does that end up breaking out to?
okay, I've got confused here. The maintenance is 382,049. And then the transit parking is 475. We do have this opened up on the website online, so you can see the actual account lines. So yeah, the 382 is for paving and the 475 is for Hiawatha Gardens. Now, please note, my understanding is these numbers have changed, but at the time that we put them in, that's the best information I had at the time.
Okay, so to clarify, 382 is for paving,
Yes,
okay? And we spent in 2023, we were targeted to spend what, 462 on paving?
yes.
And then in your revised notes, you're saying we only spent 370?
At this time, it looks like we've spent, as of October 12th, we've spent 413,353. Now, I don't have since October 12th, so we might have spent a bit more. That's for 2023.
So that number 370 should be what?
The 370,921, we've spent 413,353. So we've actually spent more than what we had budgeted.
413.
Right.
Right, okay. So that one there, I just need to cross that out and put 413,000 or whatever some.
You can put 413,500.
Okay, thank you. And so I guess I want to and then so you said we spent more there than we had budgeted, which was 462. Did you say that or did you mean to say that?
Right. We had it budgeted at final budget at 379,21. That's to my knowledge, what was going to be spent, but clearly more has been spent per the account line detail. So I'm showing 413,353. But as long as we've underspent other accounting lines, we're not breaking a state law because the overall fund, the expenditures are less than budgeted amount. It's not
Okay.
by account line.
So I guess what I want to do is get kind of a total picture of how much money we've spent on road repair and stuff like that is where I'm going with this. Okay. So 413 is where we currently have spent on that. And then going back to page 9 in the handout, we spent 262,000, correct?
Let's see, 413,500 out of PPRTA. And then over in the mobility and parking.
I see 262 down there midway
let's
on
see.
amended 2023. Half, well, it's like 2/3 the way down, second to the last column. In this handout here. Becca.
Right. I like to see,
Yeah,
I
I
like
know.
to look at the actual expenditures.
Okay, all right.
Sorry.
John, if, or Mayor, may I ask that if you could give us a few minutes, we'll pull all this together because
Yeah.
we just are talking. There's PPRTA and we also got amended. And then we've taken out at mid-year budget, as you know, we brought back and asked for some out of parking and mobility to do some paving. So during break, if we can just pull all those numbers and then we'll get them to you exactly what we've spent and
Okay,
be able to go from there if that would
Yeah,
work.
I think it'd be a
Okay.
good idea. I was kind of thinking about that too, because
Okay.
if this is just
Okay.
PPRTA, I know we took money from Park and Enterprise. So it's convoluted. And then
okay.
The other
I
thing
don't
about-
have a problem suspending it. I just want to tie some of the things
Well,
together
no,
for the
it's-
common person because we've got all these different pots of money.
well, yeah, and asphalt has become an exciting topic at some of the like
exactly.
PPACG meetings because asphalt's kind of turned into gold. If you can get it, fine. I mean, that could affect our budget too. If you can't buy it, you can't spend the money. And if you can buy it, you may want to buy extra. So, okay. All right. So we're going to hold that question, give them a chance to do some research. Do we have other parking related kinds of questions? Judith?
Thank you. It's also on the same page as of the handout on page 9. I just want to get real clarity about under mobility parking transit shuttle, 168,500. Does that include, or is that encapsulating the expected expenditures for having the 36 shuttle year round, starting possibly in February? Is that something else? Could you expand on that?
That was just the purchase of the tram. And then the other money comes out of a different line item, but that's just the purchase of the 2 trams.
Okay, so I didn't see that particular line item for if we do receive the grant for the 36 shuttle. Is that on a different line item?
We haven't put it in yet because we haven't received it. So once we know we haven't been notified if we receive that shuttle money yet. So, and once we receive it, it goes to Mountain Metro. We won't receive the funding. It will go to them.
Okay, thank
And then
you.
we'll just, you
I
bet.
appreciate that clarification. Thank you.
Okay. We have other parking related type questions.
Yes, one more.
Well, so Julie had her
Sorry.
hand up, so we'll
Yeah.
do Julie and then come back to you, John. Okay,
Yeah,
Julie?
Shoot me.
I'd like to see us set aside money to purchase satellite parking lots somewhere on the east end of town. And I assume that would come out of the Parking and Mobility Enterprise Fund, or at least in part. And I understand that we're allowed to loan that fund money from the general reserves, which is fine. But I think it's reasonable to take a look at setting aside $1 million to purchase a satellite lot, and I'd like to get that in place before next summer. So I realize that with this proposed budget, we end up with less than $1 million at the end of the year. And I also realize that this budget can be added to from the general reserves, but that's something at some point I'd like us to talk about. I realize this is just a work session.
Okay, thank you. And I guess I would seek clarification. Yeah, Julie, I think you said that we could take money from the general fund and put in enterprise fund. I'd have to, I don't remember doing that. It may be.
Well, I don't
but
think we ever did it. That's just something we were told
No.
by our attorney.
Well, I remember the enterprise fund, I believe, can loan money to other city funds and then be paid back. But I don't know if general fund money can go to an enterprise fund. I believe that's, my first thought is that's not allowed, but that would be a Becca or a Jeff Parker question.
Yeah, we can double check with the
Okay,
attorney.
But okay, so, and I think we have that as a discussion topic coming up here.
Yeah, that
So-
came up. Maybe it was executive session. I don't recall.
And it looks like we have a little over $1 million in reserves at the end of 2024. I think $1 million something. So in mobility. So just want to make sure we know that there's a little over $1 million in that.
Okay, it's good to have money in the piggy bank. Okay, does that help, Julie? Is that okay? Great. John, you're next.
Yeah, so on page 4 of the new handout, and I haven't checked it with what it looks like in the big book. but it looks like to be in 2024, we are targeted to end the Mobility and Parking Enterprise Fund with 1.3 million, correct? Okay, all right. So it would appear like from the standpoint of Julie's request of, $1 million or whatever, it seems like that we wouldn't have to borrow any money to do it in terms of it's right there. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. Thanks.
Okay, good to know. Good to know what's in your checking account. Council, do we have other questions related to parking, mobility, that sort of thing? Of course, we have the one question pending. That's going to require some research. Okay, John, one more. Okay, you sound like a little
Okay.
kid, John.
I know,
one
I know,
more,
just
one
one
more.
more.
Okay,
Now-
one more.
I remember we were gifted with sort of kind of a big reconciliation of $600,000 from PPRTA. Where is that in all of this? Where's the 600,000? It's not here in this, right?
Yeah, this is the parking and mobility.
Yeah, I
It would be
know,
in the
I know.
PPRTA, which is,
So is it back over here? I didn't see it over here in
the new-
PPRTA.
The new funding that Denise negotiated,
Mhm.
yes, that is not actually in this budget yet. That
Okay.
is why.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I thought I
Okay.
saw that.
All right, well, that's That's
thought
why I
saw
was
the
wondering where it
600, and
was. I
thought,
couldn't
oh,
find it.
there's the PPRTA, because it was in some chart that showed how much we received from them total for 2020.
it may have been in the PowerPoint compared
Yeah.
to the budget.
Yeah,
So the
it was in
PowerPoint
this
could be-
nice
yeah.
big book, and it showed that we got over $1 million, and I thought, wow, that's unusual. And then I realized, oh, that must include the 600K.
No, it'll be coming into the PPRTA. Right? It's- Okay. And so right now, this is just earlier numbers that I got back a few months ago at this point. So this did not include that 600,000. Well, it's in PPRTA, not general.
It's,
fund.
yeah, it's not mobility and parking. It's the PPRTA funding that is to be used for the Hiawatha.
Good. This is the last one, John. When you say one more. Okay, last
right.
one.
One more. All right, on this topic, anyway. What I would like to see us do, which is, I'm not certain why, Becca, we ended up in mobility parking, only budgeting 382 for paving in 2022. Is that correct? In on page 164, 164, you have 382. I wanted to make sure because I don't have my computer open. I think you said there was something new and different on the online version. But whatever that is, I guess my goal is that I would like us to see that we sustain our paving plan. And I would like to also see that we at least match that. Okay, on page 9. Okay, I'm very enthusiastic about getting ahead of this paving thing. And so I guess my point is what I'd like to see us spend is more than 300,000, okay, on page 9 of the mobility parking thing, okay, for road repair and maintenance, okay, to at least match or do better than what we have on page 164, 382. And I realized that we said that after the break, we would have this reconciliation, but I'm just proposing that as sort of kind of a policy thing. Because I'm afraid that John's granted me my last wish. Thank you.
So John, isn't 164, isn't that PPRTA?
Yeah, it
Okay.
is, but I thought that PPRTA was turned into pavement, like John said, magic pavement, okay, money. And I'm really enthusiastic about us starting to match that paving budget with what we did last year.
Okay,
I'm just trying to say from a policy standpoint, I'd like to see us at least match what we're getting from PPRTA or do better from
the
transport-
mobility.
From the mobility.
Okay,
Okay. And he may forget that, after the break, but I thought I'd jump in right now. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. And John, now that you've got me thoroughly confused, my thought here is that maybe on page 9, that $300,000 is not PPRTA money.
You're right. That's
So-
extra money.
Right. So I mean, you add the two up and we've got almost 700. That if I'm doing if I understand this correctly, I think we're looking at more like $700,000 for paving.
Right,
That would be
right.
substantial. I mean, that'll let us put a dent in the dent.
So what I'm trying to kind of advocate for is for us to start to really get ahead of this whole paving curve here. Okay, because I'm like you, I'm not in some belief that pavement's going to get any cheaper, 3 years out. And so many of these roads are falling apart to such a high degree. And I love it that we spent, according to this budget on page 9, what do we do? 262, whatever, Roy? Yeah, thank you.
One quick note is PPRTA, that new policy where we can use it for programs doesn't start till 2025. 2024 is it's specific on what programs we can use per what was approved by the voters. So 2025 gives us more flexibility for PPRTA, but not 2024.
So I guess what I was just trying to say is, I guess I'd like us to take a policy where we literally next year double our paving budget so that we can start to get ahead of this thing. And I think Roy's done a great job of maybe selecting, cherry picking, kind of the low hanging fruit in terms of chip and seal and whatnot. But I just have this funny feeling that he's going to run out of things. And we know that it's expensive to do kind of the concrete up on Pinion and Cedar and on Winona. And as a cyclist, I notice the condition of these roads maybe more than you folks who drive cars around. Okay. And I think we just ought to endeavor to just try and double this paving endeavor as much as we can next year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anything else on the topic of parking or mobility, that sort of thing? Okay, Juan, since we've got a question pending, maybe if you could stick around and stay in the audience in case a question comes up, but and you'd be excused to the audience for now. And
Mayor, it looks like we found the answer with
Oh, you
the
got- okay.
details that we have. Again, this is looking at it in the last couple of minutes, but it's a pretty high picture. It's look
Okay.
about $675,500, which is more than we've spent in years past. So $675,500 is what we're spending in 2023. And then 2024, we put in the budget, I thought it was about 300,000 in the mobility for paving. And then we put sidewalk and then we put bridges. So I think everything for the out of the mobility is about 250, 550, about 650, 700,000 for sidewalk, bridges and paving.
okay, good, thank you. Does that help, Julie?
This is mildly off topic, but I don't think you'll be too upset with me. I'm just trying to look here at the sidewalk repair, which I thought residents have to pay for themselves. So does that mean that's for city properties and or for commercial properties, or how does that work?
My understanding would be for city property, but I'll defer to Roy.
Yeah, correct. The code says that sidewalks are responsibility of the resident. However, we have been doing some of the CDBG areas, which got the grant, and that's for ADA access. So it helps with ADA and curb and gutter for stormwater. So that's why we've been doing neighborhoods for sidewalks, and I believe there's some sidewalks we still need to do and keep moving forward on a few of these really bad sidewalks for ADA access and mobility.
So the $100,000 on page 9 for sidewalks is for ADA sidewalks? Or
ADA.
any kind of sidewalk?
Stormwater, yeah, it all works together. So if you have a proper sidewalk for ADA access or mobility, you also help with curb and for stormwater. So it's a combination effect. But I did mention at the council meeting that I know that Colorado Springs recently has changed to where they will either go half with a resident if they want to do it now, Or if you wait for them to do it, they will do it 100%. And my sidewalk was recently done at 100%. So it is something we got to consider if we want to make mobility access better in Manitou Springs.
And I do want to mention Nancy has asked for that to be on the council. So I think I have it in the January or February meeting to bring that about the sidewalk program.
Okay, thank you. Good. More questions for Juan? Juan, I should give you the opportunity in case there's anything you want to tell us, and we should be here to listen for you.
I'm just looking forward to, as a team, for our 2024 goals, especially with micro mobility and just keep improving all the sidewalks and road and street repairs, just making a good difference.
Okay, great. Thank you. If there's nothing else on the topic of parking, I guess we'll excuse Juan. Appreciate you coming.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Let's see. Should we talk about Public Works next, or what would you like to do next, Denise? No, I'm sorry, Hannah's,
Let's go ahead and talk about the positions if that works, because Roy will be here until the end, but that would allow some other people to leave a little early if that is okay with the mayor and council.
okay, if council has no objections, we'll hear from planning next. And planning has made a request
Planning and
for
HR.
personnel, planning and HR.
What Kelly is passing out is a breakdown of what the administrative clerk position would do, and generally speaking, how many hours some of those tasks take, and what that means for the planning department and HR. Okay, I can kind of go section by section to talk about as far as the halftime for the city planning department, what that individual would do. I covered a lot of it in the PowerPoint presentation this past Saturday or the Saturday before. And I wanted to actually break down what the time commitments are for some of these tasks. So first, I wanted to talk about publishing of the board and commission agenda packets and minutes. And we as the planning department manage 3 different boards. And so we're doing this process 3 out of the 4 weeks of the month. Generally speaking, not generally, there always is deadlines for those, for getting those packets put together, the agendas published, and the minutes written in time, as well as notifying the board. And this takes away from the planning staff's ability to answer phone calls and address questions that come up at the front counter. Writing minutes and preparing minutes maybe is the biggest time suck out of that particular process. And I shouldn't say time suck because it is valuable. But generally speaking, each of those meetings takes about 1.5 hours to 3 hours. And when you're preparing minutes, a general rule of thumb is that it takes about twice as long as the meeting itself to get the minutes written, edited, and prepared for publication. And so when you're managing 3.5 hour or 3 hour and a half meetings, that time quickly adds up. And what we would rather do is have that time from highly skilled staff being used towards projects that require a higher skill set. And so this clerical work, so to speak, would be better served for an administrative clerk. And that could be working on library project. It could be working on Hiawatha. It's reviewing detailed development plans, things like that. We also desperately need to update the agenda packet and minute archive. That's documents on demand. I know this is a little bit my fault, but I didn't know about documents on demand until maybe a few months ago. And so it wasn't getting updated. And so part of that work would be making sure that everything is up to date and then is continued to be published there moving forward. The other big help that this person could have with the planning department is preparing public notice. Public notice with the new zoning code, we added a bunch of steps to make sure the public is well aware of when meetings are happening, as well as when a development application comes in. And so I prepared a chart of the different steps that it takes to get public notice out and the time it takes for each of those steps. And that is per project, per meeting. So it's not like this happens one time per meeting and then we're done. If we have an agenda that has 5 or 6 items on it, then that is this times 5 or 6. And so this could easily take up 20 hours per week in of itself. That means making sure the newspaper gets the mandatory public notice on time. That takes about 15 minutes. Creating postcards, generating the mailing list, reconciling that mailing list. That takes a surprising amount of time. Making sure the address info is formatted correctly, getting them printed, and then actually getting them in the mail. That happens when we get an application. It happens when we go to a public hearing, and the projects often take 2 or 3 public hearings. It also includes creating a poster, printing that poster, and then coordinating the pickup of that poster, and then making sure that that poster actually stays posted on site throughout that mandatory 11-day time period. And also, it is getting collection of the payment that's associated with those things. Generally speaking, that whole process per case takes 3 hours and 30 minutes. And that also is multiple times for a case as well. I detail it a little bit further in that second paragraph, what it means for the planning department to have somebody to help us with this process. That is relatively simple work, but it is very detailed oriented. One accidental typo on an address means that someone from the public isn't getting a postcard and maybe doesn't know something is happening. And so it's very detail oriented. It can be the only thing you're working on during that window. And that could be time that's spent creating a more detailed staff report so that our planning commissioners and historic preservation commissioners are better informed on what a project could mean. And that leads to better decisions overall. That person could also help us with invoicing, taking in application fees, as well as maintaining our credit card statements. Again, that's clerical work that takes away from the highly skilled planning staff that we currently have. We also desperately need to do a planning department deposit reconciliation. I talked about that at our budget retreat. So I think everyone's pretty familiar with that, but I did detail it a little bit further. And also we do have several what I call, or the industry calls, ministerial permits. These are, you either meet the criteria or you don't. There is really no discretionary review involved with these. And if we could have somebody, if they had time during that week, review those applications, then it improves the turnaround time for the public. And so again, we're taking those minor applications away from staff who has the skill set to be reviewing geologic hazard reports, traffic reports, things of that nature, and putting it with somebody who can quickly turn something around. And so if we were able to get an extra 20 hours a week with somebody's time, we could very easily fill it. And I believe there would be a huge impact and benefit to our boards and commissions, as well as how quickly we can respond to the public as well. And with that, I'm happy to turn it over.
Thank you. You have the document here. I don't know that you want me to read it verbatim. Obviously, you have some important things to do tonight. So with that said, I just want to outline what I've provided. The first page, which is page 4 for human resources, I've kind of given you an outline of the current things that we have done and some of the big programs that HR has taken on this last year. which are a health and wellness program, risk and safety, and grant writing to secure some pay for training. I believe last year we were able to get over $40,000 of our training paid for by grants. So that is a lot of significant time, including the risk and safety. So those are just additional duties on top of the normal HR, all the things that human resources does, correct? So I do want to point out that a priority for us, it has been discovered that we need to make sure that we're in compliance with our records retention. Right now, I have found roughly 70 4-inch binders containing anywhere from 5 to 20 employee files. In addition to that, several bankers boxes dating back to the 1980s with personnel files. All of those files need to be gone through, and we need to make sure that they're either filed or purged based upon, obviously, the local, state, and federal records retention laws. And that is a humongous project that it will take several months to complete. And with all the other HR duties, the assistance is really needed. And that would not just be a temporary fix right there. That is something that we always have to do. Every year we have to make sure that those are managed. I did provide a chart which goes over several different filing and clerical duties. And I tried to give you an idea of the average number we have per year and the average time that each action takes, and provide a total annual time. Now, of course, this is not a full rendering of the filing and clerical duties, but obviously there's a lot of filing and clerical things that HR does need assistance with. And in support of that, I would like to bring you to the last page. This information is a general practice for most organizations. Some use it, some don't. I think it's primarily determined by budget. But if you look at this, it's a human resource to employee ratio. And it gives you an idea of what other cities, I did try to call around all over Colorado. I've gotten a lot of data here. It's not apples to apples at all times, but there is a good foundation and recommendations by the certified human resource management professionals and the Society for Human Resources. Those are the two primary professional organizations that make recommendations to most employers. So the information is there, what the recommended ratio for employees, human resource representative per employee. I just want to point out that under the number 2 on the bottom of that page, SHRM, Society for Human Resource Management, does recommend that people with the organizations with 100 FTEs, they recommend an average of 2.57 HR staff for all. Now, with that being said, we are currently at 85 roughly, and that doesn't count our seasonal. So we are close to the 100 number, but we're not there. But there is still a metric that we could work out with that. But this is all just for your information so that you can make an informed decision on whether you feel that there's additional assistance needed. I am requesting a part-time 20 hours a week administrative clerk to assist with all of the general filing and clerical duties so that HR director, manager, whoever's in this position can spend more time focusing on the employee relations, the policy, things like that. And so I understand the value of your time and I really appreciate your support for the Human Resource Department. Do you have any questions for Hannah or I?
Julie, please.
Sorry if I missed this. Do you currently have one full-time person helping you? Is that what the current arrangement is?
Nope,
You
it's myself.
0. And so who in fact do you use for administrative support? Because it looks like there's a lot of floating that goes on.
There is primarily, I receive assistance from the executive assistant when she has time. It's very difficult to have anyone assist in the HR because of the confidentiality. So it's very rare that I have anyone other than that. So she's my primary support right now.
Thank you.
Judith and then Nancy.
Thank you. So, I just, for clarification purposes, so what I'm hearing the planning department needing is a part-time person for principally clerical duties and an HR person. And I don't mean to, sound, like I don't, respect that there are professional criteria that you need. But is it possible, am I hearing that this could possibly be one full-time person that that could share between planning and HR? And I asked that for two reasons. One, it sounds like that person might be really fluid between both departments. And also, we just did some remodeling and we want to make sure we maintain employee health, well-being, safety, and that we don't have another person come along and we're trying to find a place to put them. So is that what I hear you saying, that would be adequate staffing if you had a one full-time that you're sharing between both departments?
Yes, and I'm sorry if we didn't make that clear, Judith, but this is 2 part-time hours, but we would combine it into one person that we would share.
Thank you.
Nancy, you're next.
Yeah, I was wondering what the cost benefit of contracting versus hiring would be.
I believe that the cost benefit, even though it would probably be, I'm thinking with the fact that the contractors are going to be higher salary, this person would come in at a lower salary, right? When we've used agencies, perhaps and contractors, they're charging us upwards of 40 to 50% on top of the employee's pay rate. So we can typically get away from between 30 and 40% with their benefits. So it's actually, I don't have numbers to give you. I'm sorry, I didn't think about doing that, but it's typically going to be less expensive. Plus we have the consistency and the continuity. And I do know that previously when there were contractors, now currently we have someone, at least in HR, that can manage the programs. And before it was contractors without any direct management per se, and it was not consistent. It wasn't a fluid, it did not work. So I don't have numbers for you, Nancy. I'm sorry, but I can try to gather some.
Yeah, I would certainly be interested in that because it sounds like from what you said earlier that confidentiality is pretty important. And I'm also wondering why then you are looking at one person full-time as opposed to 2 part-time people. And it's also, having experienced it, it's not fun to have 2 different bosses in an organization. So I would just, I think that would be helpful to just take a look at. Additionally, I am concerned on the planning side. And Kelly, I appreciate that you did the breakdown of comparable size cities for what the HR departments are in there. But I was wondering in the planning department if you've got something similar to that as well.
Thank you, Counselor Fortune. So I don't have anything of that nature because it's heavily dependent on the planning department's particular project load, as well as the city size. So for a comparable city size, Manitou definitely has a higher project load than, and this is just my professional opinion, has a higher project load than another similar city. And so the comparisons would be difficult because it depends on how much needs to get done essentially and how many resources there are to get things done.
Right. Another thing that I would like to hear about the contracting versus hiring is that it seems like some of your projects are to catch up. They're not necessarily continuing. And so I would prefer not to see personnel creep in our, I would love to be, I support your request in concept, but I think it's difficult to keep seeing our city staff growing over time. And so I'm just looking at this very cautiously.
So I would like to just respond to the one question you had about why we would look at one full-time versus two part-time. And one of the reasons for that is because we need the person to be able to jump from one place to another fairly quickly, depending on job duties. So it's not like we could say, well, you know, you're only going to work 4 hours every day in this, and it's going to be these 4 hours. It may be that they need to cover, they maybe need to cover the department for a meeting in the afternoon. And maybe they have other work. So I think right now, with what we're sharing for this temp, right now we have a temp trying to help us. What we're doing is it's very flexible. So when planning needs them, we're able to pull them. And when HR needs them, we're able to pull them this way. If we had two separate people working two specific shifts, we would not have that flexibility through day-to-day staff.
So am I hearing you say that you already have a temp that's been working these issues?
We've started using a temp just to help us out right for now.
Denise, I believe you have comments.
Couple of quick things I want to mention is if you look at our full-time staff, we have 74 if you don't include parking and the emergency management. The emergency ambulance system. We haven't added a new person since 2018. So it's been 6 years since we've added any personnel into the general fund. The other thing I do want to mention is if we go for a contract only, we can't guarantee we're going to keep them. We get them trained and they're all looking for a full-time job with benefits and they're going to leave. It happens over and over. We've tried to do it some to bring somebody on and they're like, where they stay, we get them trained, they know what to do. And all of a sudden they get a full-time job and they leave us. And the training, especially for HR and planning, takes a tremendous amount of time, especially for the documentation of what we have to do electronically to make sure everything is at the right place. And planning has very intense document scheduling, whatever it's called. And so does HR, where everything goes, especially previous employees. And I don't think that this is something that's a catch up. This is ongoing. And it may even be more ongoing. Honestly, I would say we need a full-time for both of them, but we're going to try a part-time to see how that works. And then we'll see if we have to request more. But we've got, as I mentioned, we have files that need to be scanned that has never been scanned. We're out of compliance on certain things that we've got to get caught up on. That's why I said, let's get this part-time person to at least get the current personnel files scanned, because we just have to, from a perspective of ensuring that everything is taken care of and that we're managing accordingly.
Judith?
So what I heard you say, there was a comment that a contract hire is upwards of 40 to 50% greater than if we were to bring on an employee. Is that what I heard you say, or what are the additional?
No, I think that, so if we hire someone full-time, typically their benefits, we're talking medical, dental, work comp, unemployment, all of the things that we provide are typically between 30 and 40% on top of their salary. When we bring a contractor in, current rates by most contractors that I have been trying to use lately are upwards of 50 to 62%.
So
I'm sorry. go
yeah,
ahead.
well, I'm just, as a previous business owner, I really understand, and it was a medical clinic, high degree of confidentiality. What I'm hearing you say is that you need someone who's knowledgeable, trainable, flexible, and has a high degree of confidentiality. And I see that as more describing a regular full-time employee than a temporary employee. And I think for me, I know that we have an amazing staff now, and I want to keep you. And I don't think that you take it lightly when you come and you make an ask for additional staffing. So how much are we currently paying the temporary person? I mean, how many hours, and can you give us that information of what we're currently temping out at this point? Is there,
We
how much is that
just,
costing us?
we just started. So we just have one weekend. So it's 40 hours. I don't think we've received the bill for it yet, to be honest with you. Have we?
You know, the other thing I do want to mention before we went with a temp agency to get this person on so we could get files scanned, we tried to just post it as a temporary position so we didn't have to pay the cost. And they interviewed probably 10 people and they did not meet the standards. So we had to go with the temp agency because we were trying to keep the cost down. It didn't give any benefits. It didn't do anything for it to, and we couldn't get anybody on. So we had to go with this temp agency to get them on, but I haven't received the bill and I don't remember what our price is per hour to get this done. But we can look and tell you that.
Okay, maybe that'd
Thank
be a
you.
good idea.
I did want to make one other comment. Nancy, I know that you said that you're concerned about this position here. I do know that the files, these old files, that it does sound like a catch-up thing. But that is something that has to be continually maintained. And even with an additional person, this is going to take a really long time because of all the other day-to-day activities that go on. Yes, this is a catch-up, but it's not a catch-up that will put us in a place when we're done with it, that we have extra time. So I just want to make sure that that's clear.
Julie?
I just wanted to support the proposal, and in part also as a small business owner myself. I really appreciate what Denise was saying. When you train someone to do something fairly specific, your own computer system, your own way of doing things. And plus it's a high degree of sophistication kind of job anyway. We're not having someone just, fry some eggs for us in the mornings. They just leave because they want the para, they want the 401k, they want the sick days, they need the health insurance. Who can afford that? So, I don't think it makes a lot of, I would hate for you to spin your wheels doing a lot of work, trying to figure out what it would cost us if we did a 1099 contract with somebody, because I think they would just bail as soon as they've gotten the benefit of the training. And that's the expensive part for us, is when we're spending time training them and then they finally leave. So I really support the proposal.
Lee?
I'm also in support of the proposal. And I just wanted to mention that the school district has also had to hire additional support in their HR department and some of these other areas. And I think that's just something that's happening throughout a variety of organizations at this time.
Thank you. I guess, I look at these situations, it seems like we're doing more paperwork and, paperwork doesn't necessarily pay, it doesn't get the streets paved. It seems to me like the state, the federal government, whatever, they want more and more paperwork. And so we become creatures of complexity. So I sometimes feel like we should push back. I was having a kind of a related discussion with the mayor of Green Mountain Falls on a similar topic. And I said, what do you guys do? Because they've got like 3 full-time people. And he says, we just don't do it. He says, it just falls by the wayside. And they don't, I think they feel like they don't have any alternative. And we discussed, the idea of, do we really need to do this? So, staff, I'm kind of looking to you. This really needs to be important, and we need to constantly make sure we're not just doing busy work. So I want to be supportive of staff, but at the same time, my expectation is that we really do need to make the most out of every day and with every employee. As a small business owner, I didn't hire somebody unless I really feel they could bring something in that made us better, stronger, and whatnot. And I typically work 50 or 60 hours at that time, and it was somebody had that by bringing them in, they had to make everybody's life better, including mine. So I'm always cognizant of that. Judith?
Yeah, I want to just echo my support for another full-time position. The only person that knows when they need somebody to help them is the person that has the job. And you have the job day to day. And I think that when you have the adequate staff that you need to be successful, that makes you successful. It makes you want to come to work every day. And I think that it really says a lot about our commitment to you having an overwhelming support for a healthy work environment and getting the work done. And I'm a big fan of using temporary people when that's really truly necessary. But there's nothing like having a well-trained, well-integrated person who likes their job and wants to show up and you can count on them. And I like the idea of job sharing. So I am in support of this position. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
I just wanted to mention to you, having been on the planning commission all those years, and I don't know how busy Green Mountain Fall is, but our planning department, we have so many projects involving grants and all that free money. And I know we have to do matching funds, but there's so much paperwork involved, like you were saying, with in exchange for getting all that money and having to submit your reports and your quarterly reports and documenting every penny and all of that stuff. And I don't see how we could continue this incredibly successful pace if we don't provide the support staff they need to do all that awful paperwork. It's kind of the same problem that a lot of the doctors and nurses have now, where they're so annoyed by having to spend so much time documenting instead of just being, doing direct care with the patients. But it's essential. And if we don't give them the support they need, they may not be able to apply for more of these grants in order to comply with the legal requirements of them. So I think it's really important that we support it.
Okay, thank you, Julie. Michelle?
I am in support of having another staff member. When I was reading this and Hannah was saying how they can take the highly skilled staff that they currently have, they're doing secretarial work when they can be taking that time to spend on the projects that need to be done. Whereas we can get someone in that does more clerical work being shared with both planning and HR. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess, I look at that and I realize Manitou is special. It seems like everything we do is complicated and there's multiple layers of concerns. We have a planning issue, but it's not just planning if it's HPC is involved. And then there's one thing and another. It's difficult, and planning has been very involved in grants. On the other hand, I think our planning staff is 4 people now. The city of Fountain, I believe, has 3. They're 29,000 people. Of course, they have a lot of open space. They just, if they want to build, they can build without having to do a whole lot of thinking. We have to think through everything because we're an old growth city and we're pretty well boxed in. So I'm trying to weigh one thing or another. I'm not, frankly, I'm sitting on the fence, and for things like this, I like to sleep on it. So Denise?
Mayor, I just want to mention Fountain only has one board, the Planning Commission. They don't have a historical district and they don't have a HAB board. So they're only managing one board also with the
Okay,
planning.
that's good. I mean, that helps us frame the size of the problem. Okay, so that's good. Thank you. Helpful. That is helpful.
And I would be happy to list out the different projects that our department takes on versus what City of Fountain's department takes on.
And I realize it's in Manitou, everybody has a question. If you're trying to put up a fence post, there's a question. That's probably an hour and a half of staff time. So I get that too. No, honest to God, it's like that. It's, anyway, other council members, I think the majority here are leaning towards supporting this. Oh, John, this is a different topic, so you can have one question, John. You don't? Okay, you're saving it up for another time. Okay, thanks. Okay. Well, it's just to get a little clarity on this. If we go around the table, Michelle, you're in favor of it. Judith, you're in favor. Nancy, do you?
Yeah, I already said I'm supportive of the concept. I am concerned about, I remain concerned that unless we keep getting the revenues, at some point, we're gonna have to lay off staff. So that's my biggest concern.
I understand that and I share your concern. I'm going to hold off here, John. Or, but I mean, are you kind of for, against, or you want to abstain?
Abstain.
Okay. Natalie, you're for it. Jill, okay. Well, looks like majority of the council is leaning towards that. So Nancy, John and I are just at the end. And Nancy, you're kind of, it sounds like you're leaning towards it, but yeah, and I want to be supportive, but I also have that concern about creep at every level. We need to.
Maybe it would be
Right, like-
easier for you to decide when you find out how expensive it is to pay that temp, because I've had to hire temps before too. Oh, my goodness, that might help you decide.
No, it's that. And it's the most expensive file is the one you can't find when you need it. Or the most expensive thing is, yeah, you're missing something and you haven't got it. So anyway, okay. Anybody on council want to discuss this anymore? Denise, Becca, give you opportunity to weigh in. Ladies, unless you have something else to say, I think we're good. Okay, thank you much. Oh, yeah, John.
Because I haven't had time to read this, I guess I was hoping we would, have some time to read this pretty lengthy 6-page memo. And I might have an
Okay.
opinion on it later,
Okay,
but not probably tonight, and another night.
okay. We all just got this. So
Actually, I sent the link out last week to this exact document that was on
Okay.
the online. So
I-
I sent it out to blind copy to all city council.
okay, I had a printed copy earlier today, and when Kelly passed those out, she said that she had updates to the one she was passing.
Yeah,
out.
there
So
were a few
I
updates.
don't know how extensive it was. Maybe it's just pretty minor.
No, Mary, their only update was I added on the top of page 6, on the top of the chart, I just added a little code that says FT is full-time. I didn't want people to question what FT, PT and EE were. That's the only thing I added.
Okay.
Oh,
All right,
and
well,
I was talking about the parking and mobility. handout.
this one here. Okay. This is the one you're talking about. Okay. But this is the one I was talking, and I think, John, this is what you were talking about too. Okay.
Mayor, so if it's okay with council, because we have 4 that support, we'll go ahead and put it in the budget. And then if you want to have more discussion and take it out, we can do that. But since we have 4 people that support it, we'll go ahead and add it to the budget at this time.
Okay, that looks so December 5th will be our first hearing. December 12th will be the next one. So I guess what we really want to do is take a look at this and sleep on it. And we'll come back to it December the 5th. Okay. All right.
Mayor, the other one that I'll talk about is the court clerk. I don't know if you want to have a huge discussion on that one. That was part of the budget and it was already included. The judge has asked for us to move that full time. We've talked about the need for that due to various things. One is all courts now have to be streamed. We don't have a choice for that. Also, the fact that if we do put them in jail, then we have to figure out, we have to organize the time, and Julie, you may be able to help with this, that they can have a online consultation with the judge, et cetera. So that is taking more time. So the judge did ask that we take our 3/4 time person and move it into full time. The need is definitely there, but if you want, we can bring Elena up and she can discuss it, but it was part of the budget. So I'll ask for direction from you, how you want us to manage that one.
Okay, so we're going from, okay, I was thinking the other person was halftime. So we're going from 3/4 to full.
They've been going half and 3/4. Elena, do you want to come up and show me
Elena,
the
yeah,
exact?
why don't you come up and share some information with us?
We've gone full time for a while because we got so far behind. We had to get some records up. We didn't have a choice. So we went full time. She's back now to 3/4 time, trying to keep us up to what's required.
Yeah,
Okay.
she came on full time for a couple of weeks to get caught up on that
Yeah,
backlog.
Elena, can you get a little closer to the microphone?
So Nicole came on full-time for a few weeks to get caught up on the backlog of the DMV reporting. But she had to go back down to 3/4 time now. So she's working at about 25 hours a week now.
Okay. Judith?
So historically, have we not had one position that was shared between the clerk's office and the judge? And what am I hearing you saying, that that would be a different position? I just want to make sure how many hours we're actually talking about.
This position has always been the court clerk.
Okay,
And then they help out in the clerk's office, like during lunch hour to cover or help out with
Okay.
some things like that.
Okay.
But that's basically all they help out with. They've
see.
been
Okay.
dedicated to the judge 100%. Our cases have gone up. The need has gone up. So those are the reasons that we're asking for this. The judge has requested it, said that we can't keep up. And the individual who was working full-time said that she doesn't want to work that full-time unless if she gets benefits. And so, you can have them work 32 hours throughout the year. And I totally understand that. If you're going to work 40 hours a week, you want to be able to get the
Yeah.
benefits. But she did come back and work for a period of time to get us caught up so that we could get caught up on the DMV.
so what I hear you saying this won't change or alter the needs of the city clerk staff in any way?
No, that would actually
Okay.
alleviate some of what I help her with.
Oh, okay, thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you for
because
that.
she's having to this used to be a full-time position years ago, and they moved it to a part-time 3/4 position. And we need to move it back up to a full-time if you so approve.
Thank you.
Other questions? Julie?
I'll just make a comment that I support it. I know Deborah, the judge, is really quite conservative when it comes to spending money. She asked me and hesitated when she needed like a new chair or something, and so I can't imagine she would ask us for this if it wasn't really necessary. I would support it.
Other comments or questions from council? Okay. It's already in the budget. Yeah, okay. And we're moving from 3/4 to full. I was thinking it was half to full. So, okay. I think the sentiment from council is that this is okay.
And Mayor, I'll correct that. There may be some weeks that she'll work 2023. And then there's weeks like during court week, she may work 40. And to prepare for the court, she may work 40 because it really depends on what's happening for that week. So overall, she's probably working an average of 25 to 27. But there are some weeks that she has to work 40 just to get ready for court. And the docket, depending on how many people we have.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry. What, Julie, did you have something?
Is that a salaried position or is it hourly? Now that you mentioned that.
It will be hourly position.
So during the slower weeks, we get to pay her a little less.
No, we'll keep her she wants full-time so that she can keep benefits and para and all of those. So we'll, if I don't think there's going to be slow weeks now because as we mentioned, Elena is helping do some of her work. When she's out, Elena will do it. So we can move Elena to do all document management now, as as we talked about during the budget meeting. It's another thing that we're embarking on and trying to get up to speed on.
Okay. If there are no more questions or concerns on this topic, why don't we go ahead and move on then? Elena, thank you very much. Okay.
So Mayor, the next one is the ADA coordinator, which Alex is going to be presenting. So I'll have Alex talk about that. And then Hannah may have a few things to add to that conversation, but I'll have Alex go ahead and present on this since he's been working the online ADA and has a better understanding than I do of what the needs are.
Good evening, City Council. Let me get closer. Is that better? Oh, yes, it is. Good evening. My name is Alex Treffry. I'm the Public Information Officer. I don't have a handout for the ADA coordinator. I figured we'd just have it be more discussion based. I'll give some background briefly. I think we're all aware of what the American with Disabilities Act is. There is one in Colorado called the Colorado American with Disabilities Act. And in 2021, it was expanded to include digital accessibility. Sorry. Silence my phone. To include digital accessibility. And so there's no government standards for it. There's really the gold standard that everyone refers to is it's by the W3C, the World Wide Web Consortium, and they have guidelines called the WCAG guidelines. It's WCAG. They just released what's called 2.2, but the state is still following 2.1. And it is a very long list of guidelines. Each PDF document that we have has a 66 checklist per page to be considered accessible. The state law requires that any and all digital content that we host online is accessible. And if it is not by July 1st, 2024, then it's considered a violation of the law, and an individual can take action on us for each and every issue that we have. It's a very large amount of work to be addressed. Currently, we have about 16,000 plus PDFs hosted online. And it's all estimates here. I estimate that they're each about 50 pages each on average due to the file size and things like that. So they're quite large. The amount of work that needs to be done just on digital accessibility alone is enormous. Aside from that, though, in 2017, we did a self-evaluation plan of city facilities, parks, and other property like restrooms and parking lots, things like that. We found just alone in those areas, 800 plus ADA issues. That does not include sidewalks, city right-of-way, ramps, things like that. I could only estimate that those are in the thousands, if not tens of thousands of issues just all around Manitou Springs. In terms of digital accessibility, I truly could not give a great estimate on how many singular issues we have. My guess would be that we're probably in the high tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of items that need to be remediated on all of our digital content. And I need to make it clear that the digital aspect of it is, and my understanding just from memos I've read is that the state somewhat understands that, but that's not how the law is written. So essentially what my goal currently is, working with a consultant we have that's doing a digital ADA self-assessment on things like our websites, our forms, our PDFs, is to make it to where new content is compliant via these guidelines, or we're working towards that, but not previous content. But to be fully transparent with you all, when I'm meeting with these consultants, it's like they're speaking a different language. I mean, it's not anyone on staff specialty to work with digital accessibility guidelines. They're very technical because they deal with things like assistive technology and how, for instance, the most common issues we see are for people who use screen readers because they may be blind or have poor vision. And with that, you have to do a lot of work to really make it to where they can understand a PDF document or a web page the same as somebody who's able-bodied can understand that. And so when I'm working with these consultants, we're making progress and we're looking at a select amount of almost like a sample size of each kind of one of these things that I've mentioned. But truly there needs to be somebody who speaks the language, who can address issues like this. And furthermore, in my professional opinion, I think that the writing's on the wall for accessibility issues and the ADA to become more encompassing over time, and with more regulation and things like that from the federal government and not just the state. I will say too, I've talked a lot about laws, regulations, guidelines, things like that. But accessibility is two-pronged. There's one, what we have to follow by law, and then there's the second part of doing what's right and trying to make areas accessible for people who aren't able-bodied. And they have trouble, whether it's mobility related or sight related or hearing related, whatever it may be, but to be comfortable where they are, whether that's in a city facility or a public place. So I don't want that to be undertoned. I think that accessibility is very important. And an ADA coordinator not only protects the organization, but there's somebody who vouches for folks in the disabled community. But I'd love to answer any questions.
Nancy, and then Judith, and Natalie.
Yeah, Alex, you make a very compelling case. I can kind of hear panic in your voice as you talk about this. So, but this is another one where I'm concerned about, first of all, are there people out there who are trained in this that we can hire? Because this would be, as you noted, extremely highly skilled in a whole range of specialties, it would seem.
Yes, I mean, with that said, with the addition of the digital accessibility side of it, it really does widen the scope of what an ADA coordinator does. I mean, for instance, City of Colorado Springs, they have digital side and then the physical side, right? Because they're very different. But with that said, I would say that it's absolutely possible for there to be somebody who could audit not only the physical side of accessibility, but also the digital side, looking at new documents that are posted online, training staff on how to properly do it so we don't have to remediate documents in the future and they're just how they're supposed to be. So I think that it's absolutely possible that that position could be filled by someone who could do that.
Okay, and I absolutely support the capability. Again, I would just question if it's the best to hire an employee or to hire if there's an organization out there. And I say that because I look at our lawyer, you know, he has access to any number of other skills within his firm. And it makes more sense to do that with this particular capability, or does it make more sense? And I don't know the answer to that. I'm just asking the question. So thanks.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. Judith?
Thank you, Alex. This is one that I'm gonna want some more information, certainly with regards to what the criteria is for hiring, what this average salary range, what the scope of the job is. But what really jumped out, and there's a lot to unpack from what you just described to us tonight. What I heard you say was there's over 800 ADA issues citywide. Are you considering both physical and digital in that?
Oh, no. Let me clarify. So sorry, do you want to say something?
No, go ahead.
So in
It's worrisome.
and to start out, maybe someone else could help, another staff member, maybe we could follow up. I don't know what the average, like per what someone's, the square foot of a building, how many ADA issues there are. I don't know where that compares to a normal, I don't want to say normal, but just the benchmark. So I'll preface it with that. The 833 issues that were identified in a transition plan and self-evaluation, which is required by law to do. And so I'm sure it was done in the past, but most recently it was done in 2017. I also don't have that. We could probably follow up with it. I also don't have the information on how many of those have been fixed since then. I'm sure there have been many whenever we're updating, sidewalks or let me get closer. Any remodel of that nature, we're of course going to be considering that. But yes, in 2017, 833 ADA issues were noted in city facilities, city parks, and areas that aren't considered facilities, but like restrooms and parking lots and things of that nature. That does not include city sidewalks, city public right of way or ramps. That number is unknown.
Well, I'm sure I'm not the only one sitting here right here that I don't recall ever seeing that report, and I would certainly like to get my eyes on it and take a look at it. I do know that last year, budget season this time, and I believe it was Counselor Shada asked for a budget line of $150,000 to strictly address physical ADA issues. And I wasn't sure how much of that was affecting this 833. But first of all, I'd like to take a look at that. And the second thing that you said that really like jumped out off the page was the 16,000 PDFs hosted online that we have that average 15 pages each. I'm not saying that we don't need a person. I'm just saying that I need more information on what our history is. I'd like to take a look at that, what our need is and what we're looking at to, for hiring someone either part-time or full-time versus, consultant. So I'm not saying no, but I'm not saying yes tonight.
Yes, if you'd like me to clarify on the PDF documents as well, these are all estimates based on file size. We have PDFs documents of ordinances hosted online going back to 1880. Of course, that document is not digitally accessible. It is essentially a picture of a piece of paper. Doesn't mean it can't be. But at the moment, it absolutely is not. And there are many, many PDF documents hosted online. When looking at that, PDF remediation, when just paying someone to do it, is very hard. PDFs are truly the bane of digital accessibility. They are not accessible by nature, but they are such an important way to share information, which is kind of where you get this clash. So with those PDF documents, I alluded to it earlier, but it's a 66-point checklist for every page on a PDF document. Paying somebody, for instance, a consultant, to come in and do PDF remediation, it's possible, but it's about $10 a page. It's not cheap. So when you think about that, in terms of, let's take, a 200-page PDF, that's not cheap. And that's just one. And so when we think about that, this position wouldn't necessarily be going through every PDF we have and remediating them. That would be probably the only thing they do for a very long time. Rather, things like prioritizing the most important documents and doing those first. For instance, documents that share critical information, such as, maybe like election information or public safety announcements, things like that. So it's not just, it's a giant mound, don't get me wrong, but somebody who kind of knows the craft would be able to focus in on what's most important and show that we're doing at least due diligence to get to, what our goals are. But yes, that was a long-winded way to say that the PDF issue is not something solely to us. It's an issue for every municipality and every government agency around.
Okay, Denise.
Yeah, I just want to address the ADA and the report. Over the last, every year we do something on the ADA from Wichita, Fields Park. We're trying to get Schreiber. We're going to do the pool this year. But something as simple as, which I did not know, is a little round doorknob is not ADA. Because we looked at doing historical doorknobs in here and they said you can't. So we had round doorknobs. All of those are in that thing that's not ADA. Our signs, which Hannah is taking over, are not ADA compliant right now. So we're having to look at all of our signs, how tall they are. And those are the things that's listed, is all those type of things. We can't be completely ADA compliant in the city due to the slopes of some of the sidewalks and some of those things, but we will continue to work every year on something that's ADA and try to improve upon it. The library is another big one that we're, going to be embarking on. Hopefully we get the pool and get that restrooms ADA compliant. That's the next big thing that we really need to do. So we're working every year on ADA issues and trying to be in compliance. And that's the important thing, is with any report, if you show that you're working towards progress and you can document that you've put money, the CDBG, every CDBG is an ADA issue that we're working on that we talked about with sidewalks and things.
Yeah, I have a question of a bunch of other stuff too, but the first one is that I'm assuming that they'll help with grant writing.
The hope would be is that this position would be able to kind of identify those issues and then find ways to actually fix them in a strategic order. And my hope would be that that would include finding funding to do so.
And some of that language that you said is maybe language that we're not comfortable using. They could help us use that in our applications. And I'm just thinking that, you know, as I don't know, as baby boomers continue to age, as Congress continues to age, I'm thinking funding opportunities are going to increase. And I know like with the Art Center, some of our grants are now requiring us to give an ADA assessment of our facilities as part of the grant application. So I could see the city being in a place where if we're not compliant on things, we might not even get federal funding for other things that aren't even connected directly to this. So I think this is our future. I don't think it's going away. And I would love to have a person for the Art Center to help us. I don't know, we're flailing a bit as well. So I think this is a big deal.
Julie and then Denise.
I mean, pretty sure the answer is, it seems like every municipality, every facility that serves the public is going to need some kind of a software program or something so that new documents that are prepared, like you said, don't have to be remediated. Is there no such thing invented yet where we can just download something so that all the new PDFs can get remediated without $10 a page?
So, no, currently there's no software that can take a PDF and make it accessible. And the reason being is because a lot of testing, because you have to test it first and find the issues and then remediate them. And
but this is for new documents.
For new documents.
So you don't have to remediate if you do it right in the first place, but is there a way to do it right in the first place? Is there a system so that we can implement that like now?
Yes, thank you so much for mentioning that. I'll just step away from that, the software thing. Yes. And we've all heard of it. It's called Microsoft Word, and Microsoft Word can generate accessible PDFs, but you have to be properly trained to do so. Almost any time anybody creates a document in Microsoft Word, it's using like the most basic functions that it gives you and not using its built-in capabilities to make something accessible. For instance, when you list something, it gets what's called a tag, and it's tagged as a list. That way, someone who can't see it, they'll hear list on a screen reader. That way they know the next things they're hearing are part of a list. That's one of the 66 items that goes into digital accessibility. If you're not making an actual list in Microsoft Word, it'll never know. So yes, Microsoft Word can't do it. Granted, not every document is on, okay. Is that better? Yes. Was everyone able to hear what I was saying? It was just weird. Okay, so not every PDF document is generated on Microsoft Word. For instance, in city council packets, a lot of those PDFs are generated through Civic Clerk or something our consultant sends us and things like that. So another thing that this position would do would be working with vendors to ensure that they're following what the city requires them to be, which is generating accessible documents themselves. If like, let's say a consultant uploading a document that goes in a city council packet. On the other side, if Civic Clerk isn't generating ADA, or it's not ADA, digitally accessible documents, then we would have this position work with that vendor to make sure that anything that they're creating is accessible as well. Because in the House bill that I referred to, it very clearly states that if a third party is causing these issues, the city is still liable. it doesn't matter if we contract with them, doesn't matter if a consultant made it who works in the private sector. If it's city digital content, then it is our responsibility, is essentially how it goes. It's quite clear.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Yeah, go ahead, Jill.
Would it protect the city if we just take down all those PDFs for now?
So when I was looking at the House bill, I looked at kind of what all of our options were. I would say that, I guess if I had to give a yes or no answer, it would be yes, but I would think that it would be extremely damaging to transparency, because these PDF documents are things such as, you know, city council agendas, the budget book, sales tax reports that are posted, press releases that I host, rules and regulations for the cemetery, or staff reports that planning has for agendas and things like that. So I would say yes, but I'd say the cost benefit's very high, because we'd essentially cut off all transparency. I mean, almost everything that we do to share information with the public is hosted online. We still give options for in person, but the vast majority, I mean, we have about 3,000 people visit our website every week. So yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. Denise.
Yeah, I do want to mention, and Councillor Chandler, you can support this, is when you go to the conferences, you always go around and you meet people, and, you go to the different booths, and I went to several of the booths that had ADA, and I asked them, in fact, we even called one and worked with them in a lot of detail, and they won't do consulting. They'll just kind of give us a little bit of advice now and then, but they don't have the consulting to provide. And I think that's part of the challenge of where we are right now. The other thing I want to mention is every city is dealing with this. And I'm going to tell you, every city does not know what to do right now that I'm talking to, no matter how big, no matter how small. They're hoping that the state gives us a little bit more time. But it's going to happen. We just don't know if it's going to be July this year. Some of the expectations is it may change a little bit by July, because the state is mandating this and we don't have any resources to go with it. So I think there could be a little bit of change, but it will still happen. We just don't, and they're going to demand some things in July. We just don't know if it's going to be as comprehensive as what it is right now.
Just with an off the wall comment, this seems to me like kind of an software problem. I would imagine 3 to 5 years we'll have this care that'll save a chunk of money.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, that forecast, that it looks to me like the software engineering industry will hop on this and come up with a solution, but it won't be fast and it won't be coordinated, because we don't expect our state legislators to really my expectations of state legislatures is turning out a good product is not that high. Sorry. Okay, what's Colorado Springs doing? Do you know what they've got going there? Here, Alex?
Yes, definitely. Can I comment on the software part too? Do you mind?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yes, I kind of touched on it earlier. I would like to clarify. I do believe that eventually there would probably, I don't know the time frame, but there would be capabilities of a software remediating PDFs. That's my guess. With how much AI has evolved in just a year, I'm assuming it could. I'm guessing here. But with that said, for instance, one thing that you do is when you have a picture hosted online, you do what's called alt text and you describe what's in the picture. That is something that no software is even close to doing right now, and it's one of the most important things that you can do. That's something that's almost on every PDF we have is a picture, or for a fact, every social media post or things of that nature. So there are issues like that where the standard that we do, and that the consultant that we work with who's currently auditing our digital content or sample sizes of it, is you use individuals within the the disabled community to audit and test the documents. And that's how you really know, is because they are truly the ones who are most well-versed in how these documents should be, the guidelines they should follow. Because again, these guidelines are not perfect. It's still, even with a PDF that has met that 66-point checklist, if you are hard on seeing or blind, it's still hard to understand, even if it's fully met. And that's kind of why this is so important. So the individuals within that community are the best testers and the best way to figure out what you need to do. But with that said, I don't want to discount the possibility of software being a part of it, because I think it definitely could be. The second part was, and I apologize, what was the second part of your question, Mayor?
I was just wondering if you know what
Colorado
City of
Springs.
Colorado Springs is.
Yes, yes. So the city of Colorado Springs, I've met with their digital ADA coordinator many times. He actually no longer works there, and he now works for the state Office of Information Technology, who's in charge of this House bill. But his whole thing is digital accessibility, and I've spoken with him a lot. So what they've done is they have implemented the trainings for staff to where what they do is with new digital content that's created, the ADA office audits about 10% of it and finds the issues, and then they'll remediate what they can. But really what they do is they take that as data and saying, you know, on 10% of these documents that there wasn't alt text on the pictures, we need to train staff to put alt text on the pictures. So they're taking an auditing and then training to improve the future approach. And I believe, don't quote me on this, I think they were on track to have about 90% of new digital content being compliant with these guidelines. In terms of their previous content, they essentially have made an internal policy that any content that is older than 2018 will be remediated on an as needed basis. So if somebody asks for that document, then they'll remediate it as needed. And then it's the new content that they want to focus on. I think it's a great approach. And I think that, I believe that was an executive order from them, from Colorado Springs mayor, to implement that. So I think that it's worked really well, but I do want to clarify. I mean, that's what I would be in support of, something similar here, but I do want to clarify that is still not really following that House bill. So.
No, that's very helpful. And I can say it makes sense to me to use your today to pay for your tomorrow. But it looks like so much of this is using your future, using your tomorrow to pay for your yesterday. And that doesn't make sense to me. And we've got so many other things we need to address. I'm deeply concerned about this. Let's see, Judith.
First, I'd like to just comment on, I'm always impressed with the level of expertise and knowledge that you bring. I have
Thank
yet
you,
to
yeah.
stump you on a question, I think, no matter how in-depth it is. I just think that this is a huge issue. When I think about this issue, it really impacts everybody citywide, whether you're a resident, a tourist, you work here. I mean, this is a big deal. And I think it's important enough to bring it back to a work session. Perhaps, the next council will need to take this up in the short term and have a more in-depth discussion about it. It would be my thoughts on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other counselors? Julie? Excuse me.
Just a quick question. So under the House bill, if there is a deaf person who wants to listen, quote unquote, to a council meeting, what are they supposed to do?
So there would be a few things that we would need to do on the city's end, but mainly it would be providing captions for that video. So it's very similar with the standard like ADA that we all think of having that reasonable like accommodation or solution. The only difference is that with the digital side of it, there's more layers to it. It's very in depth and there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes, like the coding that really matters to a screen reader or a deaf user, things like that. But I'm sure there's more that I'm missing because I don't know it all, but like captions would be a great
So-
solution.
So when there's closed caption, is it tricky for us to just have some kind of a mechanism where all of our public meetings can have the closed caption option for viewers?
So luckily YouTube auto closed captions. So they have a software that does it. It's not always perfect, but if the audio is clear, then it'll provide a pretty good closed caption, which is great because it takes a very long time to put captions on videos.
So we're already in compliance in that respect since everything is on YouTube
With
in
at
terms of
least-
meetings.
With at least the closed captioning for videos we post online, yes. But that is a very small fragment of it, but it does take a lot of time. So it's great that that software is there.
Yeah, it's better than having to, I mean, certainly less expensive than having to get an interpreter.
Absolutely, yeah.
Other questions or comments from council? I think okay, Nancy.
Yeah, as I said, I'm very supportive of this capability. How we feel the capability concerns me, and it sounds like we need to prioritize because right now it seems kind of wishy-washy. What's the most important? Is it digital stuff? Is it sidewalks within the city? And if we start getting sued, obviously that will go through 85K really, really quick, potential to go through it very, very quickly. So again, capability, I'm completely supportive of, but I just don't feel like we have a good, we can't focus at this point on what needs to be done, when it needs to be done. So that's my concern. And again, I'm always concerned about hiring full-time people when, especially to a brand new capability within the city. So that's my comment.
If I may, I also don't have the greatest understanding of this, but in talking with Colorado Springs's one of their ADA coordinators, that would be something that our ADA coordinator would be able to do. There's case law or statements from the Department of Justice who brings ADA actions against cities that state what the prioritization of things like this to where, like I said, like public safety things. If you have that within a transition plan and you say, we're first going to ensure our public safety items are remediated, and then our things that are in regard to monetary benefit or critical infrastructure. I'm spitballing here, but when you have that within the transition plan that the ADA coordinator would create and then start acting on, that's something that shows that we're taking those steps to address something. So that would be something that they would be able to sort of do themselves. I agree that I probably am sounding wishy-washy, but it's also because I don't actually know. So I'm with you.
I'm not saying you're wishy-washy. I'm
Yes,
saying that
agreed.
the whole thing is
Yeah.
is ambiguous for everybody at this point.
Yeah, kind of what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. Agreed.
Councilor Channel, you'd kind of suggested maybe this should be something that be taken up after the first of the year. I kind of like that idea. It gives us a chance to look into things. I'm hesitant to put a lot of money and future time into trying to recuperate the past. It just seems like a bad way to spend money. So if council wants to leave the money in there, but I'd be hesitant to actually take action until we have a better plan. That'd be my 2 cents. I think it's time for us to take a break, but do you want to just go around the table here and we'll see where we feel on this? Maybe we're done with this topic. Maybe we want to come back to it. I mean, I think we'll probably come back to it after somebody will come back to it after the first of the year. Okay.
I would like to put it in the budget.
I'm not opposed to that and be prepared, but before we actually spend the money, I'd like to have a better idea of what we're going to do.
No, I'm amenable to that, certainly.
Okay. Do anybody else have a different idea or?
I agree with Nancy. I think we should put it in the budget for now because it is so essential and it would be cheaper than getting sued. And then we can look at the details in the coming year to figure out how best to approach the problem. I totally agree with you to be forward thinking, but it seems like we want to get started as soon as possible with all new documents being prepared to do it properly. So we're not paying extra going back in time.
Okay. Natalie, how do you feel?
I'm comfortable including it in this year's budget or next year's budget.
Okay, John?
I guess I'd prefer to have a work session on it.
Okay. And Judith's thought was after the first of the year.
It's fine.
Okay. All right. I could live with that. Nancy could live with that. Judith?
I prefer to have a work session. I admit that I need to review the House bill myself and be comfortable with that just as a starting place. But I think if it's on the agenda for the next council at the beginning of the year, I don't see any reason why we can't wait till then to revisit in a more concise and really in-depth way.
Okay, thank you. Michelle?
I'm comfortable with putting it in the budget and then discussing at a work session in January.
Okay, great. Thank you. Denise, I guess you can take that as direction to leave it in the budget, and Rebecca also. Alex, thanks. Next time you come back to discuss this, I'd like you to have all perfect answers, okay?
That's a deal.
Okay, let's take a 15-minute break.
Thank you.
If we can get started again. Oops, great. Thank you. So Denise, do we need to talk about Public Works or anything, or what's next?
Nope, I think we're all set except for now questions that you may have or any items that you have because Roy's here. And so I think it's now just opening up to questions for you.
Okay, open season on questions. Does anybody, John?
Yeah, I guess I'd like to change our focus to essentially the revenue side of the picture. In particular, something I just noticed, or I would have asked it earlier, was why the lodging and camping tax is about half of what.
Good eye.
Hmm?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, John, could you tell us what page you're on?
I'm on page 18
Okay,
of the budget book.
Page 18. Okay, and sorry.
Page
go ahead, Beck.
18 of the budget book, about 6 lines down in the general fund summary.
When I was doing the budget, for some reason, the exact amount that we'd received at that time was somehow populated that field. So that was the amount we'd received at that time. And by the time I discovered it, it was already in the official book. And I thought, well, since it's an underestimate, we're okay. If it was an overestimate by that amount, I would have been really concerned. As it is, it's something that we can fix it mid-year, super easy.
You can correct it for December, right? You
Yeah, I can
make
go
it-
ahead
yeah.
and correct it for December. That gives us, I think, about 100,000 more. Because you're right, it's about, I'm not sure if it's half, but yeah,
It's about 1/2.
so, right. So we'll be able to put that much more money in.
Okay, so the other thing too, and I think this kind of came up with essentially the property tax reevaluation. And I noticed that the way you did the computation, hold on here just a second, let me get my notes here. On page 18 of the
Mhm.
budget book.
So real property taxes?
Yeah, exactly. What did I do with page 18? What I opened up my binder and
Lost your book?
I shouldn't have shuffled my pages around here.
Hmm.
Okay. So on page 18 of the budget book, I noticed that we're anticipating a 25% increase in real property tax, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. And I guess to me, it'd be my proposal, given the overall kind of health of the city, the amount of the unassigned fund balance and whatnot. I think it'd be a great gesture if we would just flatten it so that essentially the mill levy is adjusted so that, you know, our property owners don't see from the city side a property tax increase. And by my calculations, that essentially is about $228,000 in revenue.
That's
Is my
correct.
computation correct?
Yes.
So that would be my proposal that and I believe that you did a computation for us on the mill levy page, which is on page 20, correct? In which you show kind of the historical things.
Mhm.
And so, as I understand it, you know, we have the prerogative of essentially filing for whatever mill, you know, that we would like to, correct?
Right. What we would do is a temporary reduction.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Exactly. And that's my proposal is that I think given all our other fund balances and whatnot, you know, I think are healthy. And, you know, I just have been hearing this from just a lot of our longtime residents, especially some of our low income people who have been saying, you know, I just don't know how I'm going to continue to live here with this property tax going up like this. And it seemed, you know, we can't control what, you know, the school district's going to do and what any of these other, you know, mill-based, you know, government entities would do. But it seems like to me, we ought to make an attempt to make it a flat rate and only collect what we collected the year prior.
Okay, so I've done a little bit of calculating too. If Proposition HH passes, then I believe, from what I'm hearing, is the increase would only be about half of that 25%. Actually, it's 24.7%. So it'd be about a 12.33%. But we can definitely, if it is the will of city council, do a temporary reduction in our mills and bring it down to whatever percentage rate, right, if you'd like to make it last year. So.
Well, it's just my proposal that we
Yeah.
just make it flat for what it was in terms of the year prior.
Okay.
And whatever that mill would be, and then whatever happens with HH happens with HH, and yeah, so then the increase wouldn't have been as high.
Mm.
So we wouldn't collectively be looking like we're as generous as what the calculation would show, a 25%, but at least it would be flat.
Right. Well, if we do it beforehand and HH passes, my understanding is they would be reducing the assessed values. So we'd end up getting less than last year. So we have to see what HH does and then do the calculations
Well,
accordingly.
none of this is going to happen until we pass the budget in December anyway.
Exactly.
So I'm just suggesting that we change the budget so that
Put in that
essentially
flat amount.
on that revenue line, okay, on page 18, that we reflect in real property tax instead of us anticipating a mill 154, okay, that we stick to 925. And that's what we move over into the budgeted amount, and whatever happens with HH, it happens with HH. That is our policy. That's my proposal.
Denise and Becca, question. If we were to do that, how's that affect the rest of the budget? I mean, we've suddenly made money disappear.
Yeah, you'll lose 200,000 out of your reserves or whatever comes down that comes out of the reserves. So it would just impact the reserves that you have.
Okay,
Right.
right.
It would be 228,000 and odd cents.
And it would go to the property owner, not, so if somebody's renting, it wouldn't go to the renter, it would go to the property owner.
Well, certainly, but I mean, property owners are passing all this stuff on to the renters in terms of all these expenses. And so I think we need to be real that, I think it's the least gesture we can kind of do. It's in our control with essentially these ridiculous property values. And it seems like to me that we could level it off. Thank you.
I guess my sentiment would be to leave the budget as it is, as it's been presented here, not to change that number just yet, John, but wait till we're past the election, know what the impact of HH is going to be. And then I guess I would look to staff to just a brief kind of pros and cons of making that adjustment. I think that could wait. John, it's a little bit different than what you're proposing. I think you want to do it now and then revisit it back in December 5th when we discuss this. I would leave it as is, and then we could visit it on the 5th.
I don't have a problem with when we make the decision to do it or not. It's just that to me, I'm just proposing that policy issue, and I'm just discussing what it would be to the revenue side. We've been talking about all these things of, firing up all these extra employees and spending money kind of left and right here. And it seems like to me, we ought to be talking about something that directly affects, every business, every property owner, even every renter in this community. Thank you.
Okay. Other comments or questions from council? Nancy?
Yeah, just because I can never calculate the mills, but when you do the pros and cons for the discussion, if you could just different amounts about what the impact would be from that for property owners. 100,000, 200,000, 304, et cetera.
Okay, I mean, like we say on a $400,000 house, it'd be this much of a reduction or something like that, or a $400,000 business would be more dramatic. Sorry, Julie?
Oh, thank you. I was just gonna say, I don't know if we necessarily need staff to tell us the pros and cons. I mean, the pro would be if we don't do it, we'll get $228,000 more. And if we don't do it, if we do it, we'll get 228,000 less. And so instead of having 5,800,000 and something thousand in reserves, we'll have 5,600,000 and something thousand in reserves. So I don't know that they have to do a lot of work on the pros and cons necessarily, but I'd be very happy for this to come back.
Okay, thank you. So Julie's good with coming back. Natalie, how do you feel?
Yeah, I'm curious.
Okay, bring it back. John, you want to bring it back? Yeah, I think you're
Yeah,
that.
I
Okay.
appreciate the discussion and I concur that I'd like to see what happens with HH and bring it back to talk about it. Yep.
Okay, so I guess the direction from council is that we'll talk about this in detail on December 5th. Is that correct? Council, you're all good with that? Okay, so that'll be a discussion point on the 5th.
And I'll do a little analysis of how the different numbers would affect typical prices for values for property and residential.
Okay,
Let's say the residential, I'm curious as to how much of this is commercial versus how much is residential, because it could be 75% commercial. I don't know, right? 3 times more. Anyway, which is fine. I just want us to be aware.
Right, the assessment that I get sent by El Paso County has that broken out. I don't have it off the top of my head.
okay, great. Thank you.
Just,
Sorry,
sorry, one
Nancy.
more thing. If you haven't seen it, you can go on, there's a website and a calculator to see how HH will impact you. You can input your information. It's very interesting to do that.
Okay, great. What else council want to talk about on the budget? Do we have any questions for Roy? Okay. Anything else? Well, then, is there anything on the budget you want to discuss? Or are we pretty well sated? Okay, if there's no objection, then I think we've discussed the budget. We will discuss it for first reading on December the 5th. We'll have a few items that we've identified here tonight to consider and in light of the tax or in light of the election in HH. Okay, well, it's being a work session. We don't need a motion to adjourn. So if there's no objection, let's call it a night. Thanks, everybody. And again, Beck and Denise, thanks for the good work on the budget and pass it